Thank you, members. Please be seated. Can I give you members a very warm welcome to the Chamber this afternoon. Also a warm welcome to members of the public who are joining us in the Chamber here, and particularly welcome to those who are joining us and watching the proceedings online. This meeting is being held remotely and also in person, and will be filmed and recorded for live and subsequent broadcast available through the Council's website. The Council is a data controller under the General Data Protection Regulations and the Data Protection Act 2018. We broadcast and record Council meetings to fulfil our public task obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during the process will be retained in accordance with the Council's published policies available through the Council's website. Members of the Council are reminded that they should follow the Council's established meeting protocols, including around the use of the chat facility, and that comments made in the chat facility are visible to all participants in the meeting, which may include members of the public who have also received invites to the meeting. Thank you. Do we have any apologies or declarations of interest, please?
We have no apologies for absence. Promised, we will now move to an attendance roll call before proceeding to declarations of interest. Can the following members please indicate if they are present at the meeting, either in person or remotely? Councillor Armstrong.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Brennan.
Present in person.
Councillor Brooks.
In chamber.
Councillor Cassidy.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Clockerty.
In chamber.
Councillor Crowther.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Curley.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Daisley.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Jackson.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Law.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor McCabe.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor McCluskey.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor McCormick.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Maguire.
Present.
Provost Mackenzie.
In chamber.
Councillor McVeigh.
In chamber.
Councillor Moran.
In the chamber.
Councillor Nelson.
In chamber.
Councillor Quinn.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Reynolds.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Robertson.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Wilson.
Present remotely.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest?
Thank you, members. Members, before we proceed with the business of this afternoon, can I just say to you that this is Mr. Strachan's last meeting as the head of legal services for Inverclyde Council. He proposes to go out with a bang. So, I would just like to thank Mr. Strachan personally on behalf of the council for the amount of work and the leadership qualities that he has brought to this council over the past couple of years. We thank him for his service here, and we wish him well in his future career elsewhere. Members, would you join with me in showing your appreciation to him? Gentlemen, we have a one-item agenda here this afternoon, which you're aware of. Within this council, we have standing orders that state that pre-arranged statements cannot be read in the chamber. However, due to the technical nature and complexity of what we're going to discuss this afternoon, I would consider it to be an order that we allow this to be done if required. Does this make me feel comfortable? Thank you. Also, members, there are within the standing orders time restraints, but due to the amount of detail and complexity of what we are going to discuss this evening, this afternoon, I will allow the proposers and seconders what time is required within reason. To other members, I will hesitate to put you on the clock because I want to hear what you have to say, and more importantly, the general public want to hear what you have to say. But I would ask you to respect the standing orders, respect this chamber, and respect your fellow members by making your contributions as succinct and as relevant as you can. Thank you. Item 2 on the agenda is the 2024-26 revenue budget, 24-28 capital programme, and the approval of the 24-25 Band D council tax. Mr. Patrick, please.
Thank you, Provost, and good afternoon, members. The report presented to the Council today represents the culmination of over 6 months' work by elected members, corporate management team, trade unions and my finance team. I'm aware that the report was not issued to all elected members until Monday night, and it is quite lengthy with 12 appendices. I am, however, aware that much of the detail has been seen in earlier budget reports. I can confirm that at the time of presenting this report, no further information or updates relative to the decision sought has been received. This includes the position regarding the £62.7 million increase in local government funding, which I refer to in paragraphs 3.7 and 3.9 of the report. This position was confirmed yesterday evening by Scottish Government officials via COSLA and has resulted in the addendum issued by the Chief Executive today. The report clearly highlights the significant challenges which lie ahead for the Council, plus the remaining uncertainties and risks over the next 24 months, and that is irrespective of the budget proposal ultimately agreed. I would close by saying this is probably the most difficult budget process I have supported the Council during my 18 years as a Section 95 officer. And I wouldn't have got through this without support of Louise and the corporate management team, the members' budget working group, all of those who contributed that over that time, trade union colleagues in the joint budget group, and especially my 4 finance managers whose technical advice and support is hugely appreciated as always. I'm happy to provide any clarification and advice on the contents of the report and appendices in advance of the elected member debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Puckering. Does any member of the council wish to ask Mr. Puckering any details of a technical nature? Mrs. Quinn?
Thanks, Provost. Mr. Proctor, it's just a quick question. Can I just confirm that really all we really need to do today is agree the council tax? And can I ask when is the final date that we need to submit the council tax?
So, through you, Provost. The rules dictate that budgeting council tax should really be agreed at the same time because the two are connected. Therefore, my advice for this year would be that the two need to be agreed at the same time due to the continuing uncertainty and the challenging financial position that the council is facing. In previous years where the council has split the two, it's generally around the fact that the council tax has been frozen, and so there was next to no decision to be made where it was capped. And the council also has significantly more reserves. In terms of the timescale for agreeing the council tax, I'm happy to defer to Ian, but I can tell you that the 11th of March or the 10th of March is the last date that the Local Government Finance Access Council should agree their council tax by.
Councillor Brooks? Do you want to follow that, Mr.
Yeah, we've got just to confirm that it needs to be the 10th of March. The Act says before the 11th of March, so that's the 10th of March date to set the council tax. Council tax can be set after that date. It wouldn't be invalid, but the council would be in breach of statute.
Councillor Brooks?
Yeah, thanks very much, Provost. Also, within our papers, it's very clear and accurate that we're setting the council tax band for 2024-25, and the draft motions, which also have been circulated, also confirm that. But there is press stories that are setting 2 months, or sorry, 2 years council tax, and that's inaccurate. I'm just wondering if I can also confirm that the only decision on council tax making today is for 24-25.
Mr. Puckering?
Thank you, Provost. Yes, each year the council needs to approve its council tax for the year ahead. It can agree indicative council tax increases But of course, it'll be in a year's time, hopefully the council will be sitting down and agreeing the 25-26 council tax.
Thank you. Councillor Bosky.
Right, thank you. Is it in order to ask questions of clarification on the proposals in front of us today of Mr Cochrane at this stage, or would that come later?
What do you want to ask?
Should I just go ahead with the questions and then you can work out?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Provost. And Mr Cochrane, just to put on record, thanks to you for all the work that you and your team have done in this year's budget. I've just got two questions. So in the proposal from the SNP group, Appendix 4, the proposal has a cumulative £17 million funding gap between 2025 and 2028. I'm just wondering, in terms of that £17 million budget gap, what level of council tax increase would be required to fill that gap? And my second question is that in the same appendix, there is a gap of 3.2 million for 2025-26. I'm just wondering what that represents in terms of a council tax increase if no savings were made in 25-26. Thank you.
Mr Cochrane, you can
Thank you.
attempt to answer that one. I'm sure there'll be other implications.
But in terms of 17 million, you go on the basis that at the moment 1% increase in council tax will raise about £350,000, so it would be about 48%. 48%. And for the £9 million question, the 3.1 million pound question, it'll be about 9%.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions to Mr Cochrane at this stage? Then I will go to the Leader of the Council, Councillor McKay, please.
Thank you, Provost, and can I associate my groups with your remarks about Mr Strachey? He's been a first-class officer in this council, and we're sorry to see him go, but our loss is South Lanarkshire Council's gain. So, Provost, I'll be moving the joint budget proposal from the Labour Group, myself and Councillor McVeigh this afternoon. And I suppose I may as well start with the elephant in the room, the council tax freeze. In our opinion, a nationally imposed council tax freeze is wholly undemocratic. If the UK government top-sliced the Scottish Government's block grant by £147 million and threatened to withhold it unless the Scottish Government froze income tax rates, there would rightly be a public outcry. We'd be marching in London and I would be on the march. But that's not what happens when the Scottish Government dictates to local government. And now, at the 11th or in some cases the 13th hour, when many councils are setting their budgets, we've been dangled the carrot of a share of an extra £62.7 million, but only if we freeze the council tax. And before we actually know if that money is going to materialise, because it is dependent on the UK government providing the funding. This is shameful and it's vindictive and it's an affront to democracy. Decisions in council tax should be for democratically elected local councillors, free from coercion by the Scottish Government. COSLA leaders, and I have to say including SNP leaders, believe that this extra funding, if it does materialise, should not be withheld from any council that increases council tax. And I would hope, irrespective of the outcome of today's debate, that our local SNP councillors would make those representations to the First Minister and Deputy First Minister. The council tax freeze is also regressive. A quarter of households in Inverclyde do not benefit from the council tax freeze as they are in receipt of council tax reduction, and they are the ones who suffer most when services will go up. Those who benefit most from the council tax freeze are higher income households. And it's actually revealing that last year, Provost, when arguably the cost of living crisis was at its height, the Scottish Government didn't insist on a council tax freeze. In fact, last summer, they were consulting and raising charges for bands E to H by between 7.5% and 22.5% to make council tax more progressive. I wonder what happened just before the SNP conference in October to convince the First Minister that a council tax freeze wasn't just important, it was a national priority. And I think it's worth reminding ourselves that local SNP councillors supported a 5.4% increase in council tax last year, and they supported the planning assumption of the council of 7% increases in council tax this year and next year. Council tax freeze is also irrational, Provost. The First Minister argues that income tax needed to rise to protect public services, yet seeking to impose a council tax freeze that will ultimately lead to cuts in jobs and services in local communities. He also sanctioned an 8.8% increase in Scottish water charges, which will disproportionately hit lower income households who must pay a minimum of 65% of their water charges, while they can receive up to 100% of reduction of their council tax charge. This is hypocrisy of the highest order. Have local SNP councillors complained to the First Minister about the increase in water charges, or is that just the fault of big bad Scottish Water? The council tax freeze is financially irresponsible and imprudent. Scottish councils are in a financial crisis and heading towards bankruptcy, like several councils in England. A freeze deprives us of desperately needed income. Council tax has risen on an average by 1.1% in Inverclyde over the last 16 years, well below the rate of inflation. And that's a big reason why the council is facing a huge deficit. And this cannot continue. Councils are at breaking point. At the Council Leaders meeting on the 23rd of February, SNP leaders asked that Council writes to the Deputy First Minister seeking assurance that there would be no more nationally imposed council tax freezes during this Scottish Parliament. Unfortunately, even if the First Minister comes back and gives that reassurance, we can't trust him, because he told us in terms of the Verity House agreement there would be no more council tax freezes, and yet he tore it up at the SNP conference. And the cost of living crisis isn't actually over, and it won't be over next year. So will SNP councillors in this council be pushing for a council tax freeze next year? If so, then we're facing on their budget £3.2 million worth of cuts. And of course, the council tax freeze is not funded. Inverclyde's block grant has been cut by over £2 million in cash terms, and the Scottish Government is offering us back £1.87 million if we freeze the council tax. So we're actually funding the council tax freeze from our own money. And the actual cut in our funding in real terms, after allowing for inflation and pay rises, is around £6 million. That's why we're having to use £5.6 million of reserves in our budget, £6 million reserved in the SNP budget, over the next 2 years to plug that budget gap. Without those reserves, we will be facing a combination of significantly more cuts and much higher council tax rises. So for those reasons, Provost, we cannot support a council tax freeze. After 17 years of bowing to the Scottish Government pressure, enough is enough. We appreciate that council tax freeze will not be universally popular, will be criticised by the SNP leadership. No doubt I'll get a letter from Shona Robertson, the same as the leader of Argyll will get a letter telling him to call a special meeting of the council and reverse the decision. Stuart McMillan will criticise us, Ronnie Cowan will criticise us, Chris McElhenney will criticise us. But we can live with that, to be perfectly honest. We've got the Green Telegraph on our side. We believe that a council tax rise of 8.2% is prudent and responsible. It's the only way to guarantee that the extra income you raise will be available next year and in future years. While the Scottish Government promised that council tax freeze grant will be baselined, they cannot be trusted. This year they have cut the council's baseline grant by over £2 million. They will almost certainly cut our grant again next year. They have torn up the Verity House agreement, and the relationship between local government and the Scottish Government is at an all-time low. Even SNP council leaders are revolting. Privately, of course, in the safety of that COSLA leaders meeting, is none of them will put their head above the parapet. I stand up to my party. I get phone calls about we shouldn't be raising council tax. I told my party leadership we'll make the decisions, not them. And an increase in council tax of 8.2% is reasonable in the circumstances. 2,300 of Inverclyde's 40,000 households are exempt from council tax, and 9,000 households don't pay any more when council tax is increased, as they are in receipt of council tax reduction. So up to 28% of households in Inverclyde won't pay any more in council tax next year. The average weekly increase for the remaining 28,700 households is £1.99 a week. For those living in Band A properties, and that's 46% of households in Inverclyde, the increase would be £1.50 a week. For those in Band B properties, 16% of households in Inverclyde, the increase would be £1.75. If an 8.2% rise is approved today, the average council tax rise in Inverclyde over the last 17 years would be 1.5%, still significantly below the rate of inflation. Nobody could accuse us of being profligate with council tax. An 8.2% rise is also less than the 8.8% rise in Scottish water charges the First Minister thinks is reasonable and affordable. The local SNP's opposition to a council tax rise is pure political spin. So in reaching these conclusions, Provost, we have listened to local residents. 2/3 of those who responded to our budget consultation supported a council tax rise of 9% to protect jobs and services. And as you know, Provost, the SNP tried to block us from consulting with the public. We now know why. We've listened to our trade union partners who asked us to protect jobs in our budget by increasing council tax. We've listened to Police Scotland, who pleaded with us to save our community wardens and CCTV services. We've listened to the library professionals who've told us not to cut our branch library opening hours or close the Greenock Central Library. They've told us about the importance of our community local library services. We've listened to our music service, who've told us about the importance of music instructors to give opportunities for young people to learn an instrument. Provost, our budget protects jobs. At a time when Inverclyde is hemorrhaging jobs in the private sector, we have kept council job losses to the bare minimum. The budget saving options put out for consultation included 110 job losses. Our budget doesn't include any of these proposals. Our budget provides greater certainty. We believe that setting a 2-year budget is in the best interest of our workforce and service users. Our budget protects services by increasing council tax and utilising reserves. We have kept further service cuts to a minimum. And it should be noted, Provost, that since 2008, the year after I became the council leader, the year after Alex Allen first became the First Minister, George Spinney the Cabinet Secretary, since then, under 17 years of SNP Scottish Government, Inverclyde Council has had to make recurring savings of over £75 million now. Recurring savings. That means if we didn't have to make those savings, our income would be £75 million higher today. That's more than we actually give to the Integrated Joint Board to support health and social care services. Our budget supports the most vulnerable. We're providing an extra £5.558 million for social care services, a year-on-year increase of 8.2% that I suspect will be one of the highest in Scotland at a time when the government has cut our funding. Our budget supports young people by providing funding to make our summer play schemes free to attend on a permanent basis and pay the real living wage for premises. We are also still the only council in Scotland that provides universal free school meals for all primary pupils. And we continue to provide free swimming during holiday periods and grants to many youth organisations and sport clubs. Our budget invests in our community. Despite cuts to our capital grant for the Scottish Government, over the next 4 years we plan to spend £72 million through our capital programme, including £4.5 million in community regeneration, £3.3 million in supporting vulnerable people with disabilities to remain at home through the scheme of assistance, £1.9 million in environmental projects, £5.5 million in modernising our vehicle fleet, £3.5 million in net zero projects, £10.9 million on roads and footway improvements, £14.5 million in maintaining our education estate to a high standard, and £9 million on a new learning disability day centre for the most vulnerable. I think that's a good budget. We shouldn't ignore the challenges, however, that lie ahead. We still have significant budget gaps to close in 2026-27 and 27-28, obviously 25-26 if the SNP proposal passes, which will require some very difficult decisions around services and council tax. We should also remember, without the benefits of the various loan charges savings, service concession and the pensions review, we'd be facing an almost impossible task of balancing our budget today. These have generated recurring savings of £3.66 million and one-off boost to reserves to £31.25 million. If we didn't have that money, we probably would be facing bankruptcy. At a national level, Provost, this has been the most difficult budget process that I've been involved in during the last 17 years. As a council leader, I've dealt with John Swinney, I've dealt with Derek Mackay, I've dealt with Kate Forbes. I've never dealt with a Deputy First Minister and Finance Secretary like Shona Dawson, or a First Minister like Hamza Yusuf. We've been dealing with a government and First Minister fixated on delivering a politically motivated council tax freeze at all costs. They've been prepared to break the government's relationship with local government to achieve that end. They've been prepared to bully and intimidate individual councils to achieve that end. And you ought to see the letter that the Deputy First Minister sent to the leader of Argyll and Bute Council. The height of disrespect was huge, huge. And I can assure you, we will be considering legal advice, and Argyll will be considering legal advice in terms of the way this government is treating us. Its experience has told me, Provost, that you need to stand up to bullies. And that's what we're doing today. So, Deputy First Minister has told us we don't get any money if we don't freeze the council tax. She'll punish us by denying the council issue of additional funding cuts for the UK government. We've faced many similar threats over the last 70 years, but today, I'm telling the Deputy First Minister, we are standing our ground. But on a more positive note, in contrast, at a local level, the budget process has been very professional and courteous. The political groups have worked well within the member budget working group before and after the SNP group left. And I do appreciate the difficult position that the SNP group found themselves in after the First Minister announced his council tax freeze policy in October. They were as shocked as we were shocked. And I think if that hadn't happened, I'm confident that I'd be presenting a budget today that the entire council could have signed up to, including the Conservatives, I have to say. And I know where the SNP group are. I understand their position. They're simply having to do what they're told by their masters in Holyrood. I see it every month at the Council Leaders meeting, where council leaders are forced into defending their own government, forced into doing what they're told. We don't need to be forced into doing what we are told. In terms of the budget process, Provost, again, we were very well supported by our officers, in particular Alan and his team in finance. Our trade union colleagues, as Alan have already said, have worked constructively to engage with management and the political groups. We're lucky to have them. There weren't any protests outside this building today from the trade unions. There was protests at other councils when they were setting their budgets and freezing council tax as well, Glasgow being an example. And if you actually look at the other budgets where councils have frozen council tax, they are unravelling by the day. The spin has been spun away and the details are there. Teacher numbers being cut, services being cut. That's the reality. A council tax freeze is not fully funded. It doesn't protect services. It doesn't protect jobs. And we'll all pay the consequences of that next year and the year after. And a final thank you, Provost, for all those residents who took time to participate in both of our budget consultations. The feedback they've given us has been very useful. To replace the note, I'm now going to move to the formal motion. So, Provost, can I move that the Council notes it has considered the results to both phases of the Council budget consultations and has had due regard to the equality impact assessments, the Fairer Scotland duty assessments, the UNCRC impact assessments, and the principles of the Armed Forces Covenant, all as related to the savings and proposals set out in the Chief Financial Officer's report and as referred to in Section 6 of the report. The Council approves all the recommendations contained in the Chief Financial Officer's report, subject to those adjustments detailed in the motion circulated. The Council approves the savings options as detailed in appendix to the motion as circulated, together with the use of reserves where noted. The Council approves conducting the 5 reviews detailed in appendix 2 to the motion as circulated, the outcomes of which will be reported to the relevant strategic committee for consideration during 2024, and that the Council approves the following Council tax resolution: that the Council tax be increased by 8.2% 2024-25, meaning that the level of Band D Council tax per member fine for 2024-25 be £1,547.01. I so move, Provost, and invite my colleague Councillor Maguire to say.
Thank you, Councillor Kemp. Councillor Maguire, please.
Thank you, and can I thank you as well for allowing us to have notes for me. It's pretty poor, and I think it's very disappointing for the stakeholders, so thank you for allowing that to say.
So good evening, provost, colleagues, officers and members of the public. This budget has been difficult. And I know that almost every single year this has been said, but I feel that this year it's even more so more difficult. We began this process together with every group represented at the members' budget working group, and as a collective we have met almost every week to discuss this budget for a significant portion of the past year. Unfortunately, the groups left people left throughout the process, but I do believe there was willingness from all of us to get this right in our area, well as right as we can within the parameters we must work within. What has made this budget particularly difficult is the glimmer of hope that was presented to us in June in the form of the Veritas Hearing. This promise to refresh the relationship between local authorities and Scottish Government, that we would be treated with respect, where we as an authority would be trusted to set budgets with little ring fencing that reflects the local needs of our people in the area, that we would have an open dialogue and communication with the Scottish Government, and that we would be empowered as an authority. Unfortunately, 3.5 months after signing the agreement, the first week occurred at the SNP conference where Hamza Youssef announced a nationwide council tax freeze. And I can tell you I was very surprised to get that notification through my phone. Bearing that in mind, that of those 2.5 months, 2 of those were still recessed at Scottish Parliament. The ink was barely drying on paper at SimCon. Since then, there has been a total disregard for our council. We were promised to get budget settlements simultaneously. This year we got it the day before the winter recess. We were promised a multi-year budget, once again denied the ability to set a multi-year budget. We were promised more autonomy over our budget, but instead we've been threatened with sanctions if we don't do what the Scottish Government wants. The communications around some of those things as well have been so poor that we've waited considerable periods for clarity, for example, to hear about what would the sanctions be for this council if we were to reduce teacher numbers as a result of cuts to our funding from the Scottish Government. The SNP have claimed that the council tax freeze is fully funded, but it wasn't. They didn't ask us what we needed to close the gap in our area to provide the service our people need. They then blocked the greens, and the SNP had the audacity to announce that by stealing money the UK government think they might be able to give it to us, that would be a fully funded freeze, when we don't know if that money's coming. There's been a lack of representation from our local MSP for better settlement for Inverclyde. Instead, he's told his party line. Inverclyde needs to have a strong advocate in the Parliament, and this isn't currently the case, and it's very disappointing. Our group has a non-party political protest where we invite everything this chamber and trade colleagues and members of the public to join us. And in the press, we were questioned what we were hoping to achieve. What we wanted was a better settlement, and if we wanted the government to hear us, we didn't feel heard in Parliament. This sets out apart the scene for some of the external pressures we've been facing within this council recently. We started the year with the prospect of cutting jobs and services. What you see before you today is the budget which has stayed to jobs. We consulted twice with the public to understand what was important to people across the area. We listened, and through the second consultation, the public said that they supported up to the 9% council tax rise. Our council has not had multi-year settlement for the best part of the decade, and this gets best practice for public finance that Audit Scotland stressed. And since 2008, we've only been allowed to freely set council tax for 2 years with no constraints. A colleague here referenced 75 million has been cut from our budget since 2008 and 9. This represents the total decimation and loss of many services and jobs in this area, some of which we are still fighting to keep locally. If we had been allowed to set council tax at 3% per year for those 11 years with the freeze, it would be £500 per bandy per property better off. Just imagine the benefit this year our people could have had with that. Imagine the jobs and the services we would have had to have lost. And we know that women, the vulnerable, those who are other abled, are disproportionately affected by council cuts. As a result of our Labour, Councillor McVeigh and Councillor Mackenzie budget, we are able to commit to protecting services and jobs of CCTV, community wardens, and are providing for enhanced local benefits such as golden grants and free school meals have been protected. The SNP's proposal is not sustainable. The council tax freeze will continue to keep us trapped in everyday and black hole. By relying on the use of reserves that can only be used once, it's hard to see a way forward. Finally, before I finish seconding, I want to thank the people that I'm sure all of us in here want to thank. Our Chief Finance Officer Alan, our Chief Executive Louise, our corporate directors, our officers alongside trade union colleagues, our employees who have been very understanding during this uncertain time, and members of the public who participated in either or both of the consultations. I second this joint budget and ask my colleagues to support this proposal to improve jobs and services within our area. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Maguire. We'll go to Councillor Parley, please.
Thank you, Provost. Before I begin to present the SNP amendment, I have to say that I thought I may be standing up today to actually withdraw our amendment, as the Scottish Government funding we make having an 8.2% council tax rise illogical at this stage. So I'm going to read out before I formally move the motion, I will read it out just for members' note. The amendment from the SNP group will encompass the following: that the Council notes it has considered the results both phases of the Council's budget consultation and has had due regard to the quality impact assessments, the fair and duty assessment, the UNCRC impact assessment, and the principles of the Armed Forces Covenant, all as related to savings proposals set out in the Chief Financial Officer's report and is referred to in Section 6 of the report. That the Council approves all the recommendations contained in the Chief Financial Officer's report, subject to those adjustments detailed in a motion as circulated, including additional use of reserves where noted, and that the Council approve the following council tax resolution: that the level of council tax in 24-25 be frozen at 23-24 levels, and that the level of Band council tax for Inverclyde for 24-25 be £1,429.77. I am not formally moving that amendment at this point because I want to make some few statements about the code. As I begin in earnest, I would, of course, like to thank genuinely council officers for their efforts throughout this year. I know that this is not an easy task, which is made unnecessarily harder by the way we do budgets in the UK. I expect some members will add criticism to the Scottish Government with respect to the way the council tax freeze has been implemented. That is, of course, a legitimate political standpoint, but to continue with the council tax rise when there is equivalent funds proposed for Inverclyde Council by the Scottish Government is not legitimate, and takes money out of Inverclyde when we should be trying to get more money in. Excuse me. When I think back to the start of this year's budget, I remember a discussion with senior officers regarding the difficulty in getting a balanced budget this year and the magnitude of service cuts that would be required. My response, which I acknowledge was flippant, sometimes my way, was that the budget was easy. No more cuts to frontline services. We need to instead concentrate on how we provide these services and how we increase it. In this regard, this budget is a start, with workstream savings agreed, but we need to expand this process, bringing the necessary efficiencies in how we provide services as we grasp the net zero challenge. That again, at this point, and for this firm forward, we will be looking at protecting frontline services. As we look at the forecast post 25-26, we can see that challenges to the revenue budget remain, but it's by looking at the how and the where that we consider that we can make inroads into addressing this budget gap, not cutting the work ourselves. As noted in the report for us today, the Scottish Government has proposed £147 million for a council tax freeze in 24-25 and £62.7 million general funding related to accepting the council tax freeze grant. This means up to £2.842 million for Inverclyde, and I'm taking the numbers from the council report. This is equivalent to 8.12% council tax rise. This is effectively indistinguishable from the amount of funding that's proposed to be raised by the Labour Council tax rise with support promised. Councillor McVeigh. Indeed, this council tax fees funding could be substituted today for the proposed council tax rise without affecting the remainder of the budget proposed by the Labour Party promised. Mr. McVeigh. But here we are. I know that we have disparate views on the appropriateness of a council tax freeze this year. Going forward, funding decisions of the Scottish Government will we continue, as should be the case, to be measured against the principles of the Inverclyde Council Agreement. I quite agree. We have to, that Inverclyde House Agreement should be the standard for Scottish Government and councils. Members of this chamber will therefore come from different philosophical and political points with respect to council tax. But the decision facing us today is quite simple. Do we choose to return up to 2.842 million of grant funding this year and subsequent years to Scottish Government? That is 2.842 million this year, next year, the year after that. Do we choose to increase the burden of council taxpayers by 2.87 million this year for a net increase in revenue of £28,000 over the council tax freeze grant? A choice which necessitates a £100 increase in council tax for every additional £1 in revenue raised by not accepting the council tax freeze grant at this stage. I have a pound. Would anybody give me £100 in exchange for this pound? This is the choice you're making today. This is what's going to, the price that we're going to expect the people of Inverclyde to pay. £100, £1. Do we choose to make the council taxpayers and government expenditure in other areas of Scotland? If the £2.842 million isn't coming to Inverclyde, where's it going? Do we choose to make Inverclyde one of the most deprived areas? Inverclyde, one of the most deprived areas of Scotland, pay the second highest council tax after Inverclyde. And this is written as I come into this chamber. But the fact remains, we will have the second, as things remain, we will have the second highest council tax in Scotland. As an SNP group, we believe the right decision for Inverclyde is to accept the council tax fees for 24-25 as expressed in our amendment. Promised. I therefore formally move our group's amendment and ask my colleague Pam Armstrong to second.
Thank you, Councillor Curley. Councillor Armstrong, please.
Thank you, Provost. Thank you, Councillor Curley. I am very happy to second our amendment because it is the right thing to do for the people of Inverclyde. There is no justification for imposing a council tax rise of over double the rate of inflation on around 30,000 households in Inverclyde, when the equivalent funding is on offer from the Scottish Government. We do not, as we see it, want to be an outlier. We do not want to be an outlier along with Argyll and Bute. It may make some sense in Argyll and Bute to increase their council tax by 10%, but that's an authority with a great many second homes, where 100% surcharge could be payable. Inverclyde is not in that position. We've often made the argument that Inverclyde should be a special case. Special case, yes. Lost cause, no. Presumably, every member in this chamber wanted more money from central government, from Westminster and from Holyrood. We have achieved this. Take the win. This is now, as we are meeting here, this is now a one-day deal. Take the win. When I leave this chamber, I know that I will leave with my conscience absolutely clear, because I will have voted for the thing that is the best for the people in our authority. And I would ask everybody around the table, are you going to be able to do that? Are you?
Yeah.
I urge you all to support our amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. I will now open the floor up. Councillor Quinn, please.
Yeah, thanks everyone. First of all, let me just recognise that it's really difficult to stand up here and speak and give your views. So just to say, I know, there's been a number of times where I thought I've got something really important to say and I've probably got up and spoken. Because for many reasons which I'll not go into today. But today, I just have to put my big girl pants on and I have to speak. Because I'm absolutely sick of politics. I'm sick of party politics coming into our area and ripping us apart. Now, I'm not standing here defending anyone. The Scottish Government should be ashamed of themselves. We have a members' budget working group that Audit Scotland said is a piece of great, lost my words, perimenopausal woman. See all the women out there, you'll get it, but it's not going to make me stop talking. But good practice. That's what Audit Scotland said. Let's go all in a room, thrash it all out and come out with what's best for Inverclyde. Inverclyde is screaming out for leadership. Leadership, hope, a vision. I don't see it. Where is it? I got into this job because I was full of ideas. Full of ideas, full of hope for our community. Our community is out there, they're desperate to get involved. We need to regenerate this area, but we don't do it just here in this council. It's the people out there that's going to regenerate this area. But what we do, we're all in here talking about politics. UK government, 14 years, the Tories have done it to 17 years, the Scottish government done it. 17 years of Labour-led council, they've done it to. I don't actually care. I don't actually care whose fault. But we've got a chance today to just say, look, let's get rid of all the politics. We all get into the job, we all promise. We're going to stand up here and do the best, and we're all arguing about what's the best for our area. Well, the rest of them are out there saying, I don't have a clue what you're actually arguing about. We don't have a clue what we're talking about. Okay, so we were in a budget group, we all agreed, plan an assumption of 7 to 7. So can I just say before I start, this is my view on my experience of the process. There'll be a number of people saying, no, you're wrong, no, that's not accurate. I don't really care. And just the same, when I sit back doing it, I'm not interested in any political debate. I'm not interested in people coming at me and telling me I'm wrong. I don't care if I'm wrong. I don't care. I said that I would come in here and stand up as best for Inverclyde. And I was just hoping for a bit of hope. And do you know what? Whatever, whoever's got a good idea, I don't care who we've carried on. If you got a good idea, come to me. Because I'll roll my sleeves up and I'll give you a hand. Because that's what Inverclyde needs. Okay, so let's not talk about who did it to you and bullying and all those horrible negative words. Stop using negative words. I'm fed up with the negativity. I'm fed up with it. I need positivity. Who's got positivity? Is anybody around here with positivity? Come and see me. Because I'm fed up with the negativity. So every day I say I'm out of here, I don't know why I'm here, but no, that's giving up. Okay, so let's cut the politics. Don't come at each other. Just accept people disagree, and people have got a different view, let's just accept it. So don't come at me, I've had enough, I'm not interested. So that's the first thing. So planning assumptions. Planning assumption. We made a planning assumption of 7 and 7. We all get in a room and said, right, we don't want to take cuts, we don't want to cut service, no one here, we all put our hand up and agree, nobody wants to see our jobs or services cut. We all agreed, great, 7 was the magic number. Okay, 7's the magic number. Then the Scottish Government chucked a spanner in the works. Political statement. We want to freeze the council tax. No, but we know what's best for our communities. Just give more money. It's not talking about Scottish Government money, UK Government, Council money. It's no anybody's money. It's the public money. This is public money. Give the money back to go to the public. It's not to go to us for us to decide. So, but give it to the communities and let's sort the problem. 7 and 7. That was the job. That's what we could do. No cuts. Okay, get involved. We're going to fully fund it. I'm thinking, great. I don't need to pass this cost on to the public. I don't either. We're going to fully fund it. No, they are funding it. No, we're not funding it. Yes, we're fully funding it. Then we'll have the argument about that. Right, okay, so it's funded with its 5%. Well, that's not enough. We need 7% because we're protecting services and jobs. No, it's not enough. So I'm happy to go with 7. Stick there, please. We don't want it. We need 7. Then we've got the situation where they came back at the 11th hour when we're all sitting here every day. I think I've agreed, right, this is clear, this is what I'm doing. Then another letter comes in and another letter comes in and folk coming in here and stuff on social media. Like, what? Can someone tell me what is actually happening here? So we get another letter, it's fully funded. Great, it's fully funded. No, it's not funded, there's uncertainty. And I absolutely accept Labour's position. It isn't guaranteed because we don't have any trust. We don't have any trust because this trust is broken. Okay, but what we're saying is by a freeze is they're not trusting us as a council to spend our own money properly. That's a breach of trust. So I understand we've not got any trust. But okay, let's confirm it's fully funded. Okay, we've not got that. So some would argue, so the SNP are saying it is, the money's coming, it's equivalent to 8.2. Over here it's saying no, it isn't, we need to increase the council tax 8.2. So I'm happy to go with the risk. I'm happy to go with the risk because I cannot ask the folk of Inverclyde to pay 8.2% for a party political on-fight, pretty much. I can't ask that. So I need to just say no. But I can totally accept that we have uncertainty. I've not got 100% trust. So I propose an amendment. We don't need to, we've already had it confirmed, we don't need to get the council tax today. So the council tax remaining part is based on the UK budget. Let's wait, that's 6th of March, we're only round the corner. So let's just give it that extra week or two. Let's give it an extra week or two. And potentially we can then take the grant and we don't need to pass that. So I've heard all the arguments, what a freeze does, what it doesn't do. It's all the, we always use it's all rich people and poor people as if there is no one in the middle. Most of these are swirling about thinking how we're going to pay our bills, how we're going to feed our lanes, how we're going to look after our old people. We're all just swirling about here. So you can argue where it's rich, but okay, it's just a latte. If I hear that once more, it's £3 million worth of lattes. £3 million of lattes that we're all going to spend in the shops. There's £3 million, the coffee shops of Inverclyde will be decimated because nobody's going to them to buy the lattes. I don't care. It's £3 million. I can't ask them to pay for a political argument because I'm absolutely sick of the arguments. So I'm proposing that amendment. The amendment is that we accept the freeze on the provision that we receive it, the fully funded, confirmation that it's fully funded. That the 2.8, Chris is more the details down on, is coming in the spring budget. And we get that by whatever the date is, the 10th of March. 8th of March.
We would have to take a decision by the 10th of March.
10th of March.
Which is a Sunday.
So we receive that by the 10th of March. Okay, so we take the freeze,
basis of receiving that confirmation for the 10th of March, if we don't receive the confirmation, Scottish Government, if you're listening, if we don't receive it, then we're putting the council tax up by 8.2%. Because then it will be the Scottish Government's fault because they had a chance and you weren't listening. So put it up, because that's what we've got a choice between. Like garments, I don't really care. So, but I can't pass that on. I can't pass it. I absolutely agree and I understand why everybody's raging. You should be raging. I agree with your raging, but I can't ask the public to pay for the fact that you're raging. So hopefully we can all put our party politics. We can all see that this is sensible for the folk of Inverclyde. And I've not got, you'll probably notice today I don't have a seconder for my motion because I'm here on my own. I'm just me. I'm just a wee woman from Europe who really cares about Europe. Okay? And probably to mention, which I failed to do, both budgets, both agreements said we're not cutting services and jobs. And that includes Europe, so everybody can take, oh, I said this and I said that. Because I wouldn't be standing here if it meant I cut services in Europe, because that's primarily what I'm here. So, this is an opportunity for you to stick all your party politics to the side, take after your rosette and think about what's best for the folk. What's best? You're going to have to say, you could have got the money, but we didn't, because we're pure raging at the Scottish Government. I'm pure raging at the Scottish Government, but I can't actually pay. So, we don't need to do it, let's not do it. So, that's the amendment, but I'd ask all you party political people around here, are you going to put your hand up and second the motion? Anybody else want to second a motion? No, we're going to Ireland. So we'll do that.
Drawing the motion.
We vote on the basis of our today.
I would like to second the motion for this.
So consult your group.
Right, sorry. Can I just clarify? Somehow we're all making it as if it's somehow some political stunt. I don't do political stunt. I've been here for 7 years, it's not a political stunt.
Lynn, you should be reminded you voted for a budget last year that's got jobs and services. You took quality seriously.
Councillor Cockatoo, please.
Councillor Quinn's moved an amendment, it's got it seconded. That should be the end of that.
Thank you, Councillor Cockatoo.
So you can sit down.
Excuse me.
Sorry, that's a point of order.
No, sorry. Councillor
Please.
Quinn has put forward an amendment, has been seconded. She doesn't need to sit down until after. Thank you. Yeah. That's fine. Can you give us confirmation, Councillor Quinn, of what your amendment is?
My amendment is that this council agrees to freeze, takes the council and the Scottish Government council tax freeze subject accepts in, you help me out here, because I'm looking at what say something.
We had two motions here which were circulated in advance, detailed motions. So if Councillor Quinn is wanting to move an amendment, then I think we should have a recess till she constitutes a proper amendment. And I think we need clarity from the SNP group that they are now withdrawing their motion.
Agreed.
Yeah, we'll take a recess for 5 minutes. Mr. Strachan will consult with Councillor Quinn and get the notice, the amendment formalised. Thank you.
I think you need another 5 minutes.
Thank you, members. We are now back in session, and Mr. Strachan, please, can you inform us?
Okay, thank you, Congressman. For yourself, discussions with Councillor Quinn and Councillor Reynolds that I'll read out what I understand to be the amendment and after the Councillor's confirmation. So the amendment would be: Council wishes to freeze council tax for 24-25, but it is not yet able to do so as it does not yet have the certainty that additional grant monies will be available to the council from the Scottish Government. The council requests confirmation of this grant being available from the government by 5 p.m. on Thursday, the 7th of March. As such, council agrees to defer consideration of the council budget for 24-26 to a special meeting to be held at 4 o'clock on Friday, the 8th of March.
Does that ring true with you, Councillor Quinn?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I don't know if you want a wee bit to the end bed or something.
You're entitled to another few minutes.
Yeah, okay, thanks. So really, I just want to clarify, this was offered in the general hope of compromise. You know, so we've got two here, we've got a freeze offered, saying, you know, so we had the SNP saying it was on, it's definitely certain. The Labour group and others said that it's uncertain and that's why we need to charge the public 8.2%. So it was the uncertainty there. So it was really to try and remove that uncertainty, because that was the argument we've got here. There is a breach of trust. But I would just point out that I'm hoping that we do, you know, go back through our lobbying powers, Council Leader through COSLA, and also our SNP colleagues here, to actually speak to the Scottish Government, because this can't be allowed to continue. Just leave us alone. Just leave us alone. Give us our grant and stop imposing council tax fees is undemocratic, and stop ring fencing as well, which is also undemocratic. So I'm standing here today genuinely trying to do the best for Inverclyde and trying to reach a compromise and pull everybody together that I said that I would do. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quinn.
Sorry, just a point of order as well. Just to clarify, it's not for anyone in this chamber to tell me to sit down and part for you promises. You know, so I actually take exception for someone telling me basically sit down and shut up.
Good, Councillor. Thank you. Councillor Reynolds, you were seconding that motion. Would you like to speak on it?
Thank you, Provost. Yeah, I'll just read out a couple of paragraphs that I already prepared for the debate. Just to support this, I think it does anyway. Inverclyde press release this week noted the decision at the last council meeting to appoint two of our councillors, Councillor Robertson and Councillor Brennan, to the Green Town Board, which will be responsible for the £2 million per year from the UK government. Labour's council tax proposals will take almost £3 million out of Inverclyde residents' pockets and therefore out of our local economy. And that's just for this year. How that makes sense, I cannot fathom. This would not be the case if we took council tax fees and accepted the SNP budget. The £62.7 million, when confirmed, which we believe it will be because of Councillor Law's meetings, face-to-face meetings with the First Minister and our discussion with the Finance Minister. And as we all know from studying the papers, that we do not have to raise the council tax. So Councillor Quinn's motion provides an opportunity for clarification for members of the council and to make the best decision for the residents of Inverclyde. It's an extremely prudent approach, and I commend Councillor Quinn for having the courage to stand up and enter the debate in this way, and it allows us time for reflection for another week. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. What we have now is we have the Labour motion, we had an amendment from the SNP, and another amendment has come in from Councillor Quinn, which has been backed by an SNP member. I intend to go to the leader of the SNP group to clarify if they are willing to run with Councillor Quinn's amendment and withdraw your original amendment.
Thank you, Provost. In the context of Councillor Quinn's amendment, we, I think what we would say is we understand that there is a kind of show diggers money situation here that we think will transpire. But we understand that colleagues on the other side of the table don't believe will transpire, and this compromise option allows us to have the resolution as to whether the money transpires or not. If it does transpire, then we support a freeze. If it doesn't transpire, then all bets are off. So, you know, we think that's a fair position to be in.
But I do need to say.
Excuse me.
Can I ask?
Right.
I realise I didn't put forward the motion.
No. Can we agree, Councillor Curley, Councillor Armstrong, can you agree that your amendment is withdrawn?
Thank you, Provost.
Without speeches, please. Simple yes or no.
That's
good. That's a very house agreement.
I think it's quite like that. Yes, Provost, going with the spirit of compromise, we have confidence in the Scottish Government that that's shown to be incorrect. Then we believe this is a good way of testing that, and we will what you call I will withdraw.
Thank you, Councillor Curley. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with my colleague to withdraw the amendment if we agree the motion from Councillor. Thank you.
Sorry, Provost, I need to come in that point order here. You can't conditionally withdraw your motion, and then if you lose the vote, you want to vote on your motion again.
Okay. I beg your pardon. We will withdraw our amendment.
Full stop. That's all you need to do. You don't need to say any more.
Councillor McCabe, please.
Point of order. Is he allowed to just shout?
No, he's not.
Thank you. Can you tell him, please, Provost?
You told off in Parliament if you told me.
Councillor McCabe, please. Now we'll open the floor for any other member wishing to make a contribution. Councillor McCabe, please.
Thank you, Provost. Thank you. I will address my speech, which I spoke about earlier, in light of the motion that just had. Can't see the difference really, but we're calling a freeze. I think that's the general consensus. We have a freeze, or we don't have a freeze on here. But no doubt we'll discuss that further down the line with other contributions. But I think a difficult budget for us, absolutely. More difficult than most, and I would associate myself with comments of various speakers already regarding the help and assistance we've had the officers, the unions, Mr. Cook and these teams, so very much thanks to them. But I would like to draw members' attention to appendix number 7 of Mr. Cook's report was, and that's regarding the use of the verb. And arguably the most important paper in this report, in my opinion. And that shows that we're going to use more than 12 million worth of fee reserves are going to be used as part of this budget process for both budgets which were proposed. Now, that includes £6 million to support the revenue budget and 4.4 million to support the capital programme. And that's money that we could be using for other things in Inverclyde. But that's what we're having to do because we continually using reserves, and that is where you like it, where you don't. That is after years of capital tax freezes, our caps, and the underfunding of councils in general. And we've got virtually no free reserve left. We're running at a loss, Provost, and it's in black and white in the report, and it's unsustainable. In point 6.2 and 6.3 of that report, the Chief Financial Officer highlights the risks which we have with the current budget going forward. And with no free reserves, the only option we're going to have closed tax in the next couple of years is either going to raise council tax charges and or going to cut jobs and services. To bring that into the context of today's budget, Councillor McCabe are renewing a budget with in excess of 15% council tax, and Councillor Curley with a more than £3 million worth of cuts. No. And that is the reality of the because Inverclyde, like all councils, we are facing a financial crisis. We are. And for 7 years I've sat in budget work groups and sat in this chamber and all we're talking about is cuts progress. And we're facing bigger debts in the years to come. 16.8 million if you look at the appendix 9 in the report. Now, today's decision whether we freeze or whether we don't freeze the council tax cannot be taken in isolation. Freezing the council tax would have ramifications, and they have to consider the financial stability of the council in future years. A 2-year budget would bring in £8 million worth of revenue, 5.1 million of that returning promised, and that is where you need that to protect jobs and services. And we have been told that the council tax rate is going to be baseline. The baselines can be cut, promised. Baselines can be cut. That's what happened this year. The Chief Financial Officer mentioned that in the very start of his report, and I quote, the draft settlement included a line-for-line £2 million reduction in funding within revenue and a 0.3 million reduction in capital. So what do we do if that happens next year? What do we do if we don't get the money that's supposed to come from the UK government? We're setting budgets, and if we don't get the money, then there's ramifications for that, because we're dealing with real people's lives. We're dealing with real people's lives. And I know, Provost, all taxes of any type in general are not, they're not popular. Let's look at ourselves on. But the easy option for us today would be to freeze council tax. Let's face it, wouldn't get any criticism, and everybody would be happy. The easy option for us today is not necessarily the best option for Inverclyde. And I think that's borne out in the feedback we've had for the budget consultation, where more than 65% of respondents were supportive of a 9% increase in council tax. And we should bear that in mind when we're setting our budget today. Because Provost, the decision of the First Minister to freeze the council tax was a panic measure, following us up around the ground and having back this. If you don't believe that, then I don't know what you'd ever believe. In my opinion, Provost, and as a result, the SNP colleagues have been left to deal with the fallout. Now, had the First Minister accepted the compromise proposed by Closer and gave us a share of even 144 million, never mind the 62 million, and capped the council tax rise, we would discuss the budget today with a council tax rise around 3.5%. And had that been the case, I suspect that budget would have been passed unanimously. But Provost, I'd just like to touch on, and I've seen stuff on social media about the financial crisis and people struggling. Now, financial crisis has been with us the last couple of years, and we've never had a council tax. Right? But this is a council. 2 years ago, the council collectively, 2 years ago, we gave a £350 cost of living payment to almost 10,000 families here in Inverclyde at a cost of £3.5 million. This is a council who for years have enhanced criteria for school transport, for free school meals, for the school uniform card. This is the council who brought in free school meals for primary fives using their own money, not funded by the Scottish Government, their own money, the first in Scotland, I believe. And this is the council who have funded free play schemes for our young people, and they're going to do that permanently. And all the while, Provost, all the while, the Scottish Government have been cutting our budget. So I'm not going to any lectures to Stuart McMillan, or Ronnie Cowan, or Shirley Robertson, or anybody else for that matter, when it comes to who is helping people when they're struggling. But ultimately, Provost, it's 2 budgets in 1 moment, and as councillors, we have to take different decisions. It's our responsibility to do so, and we must shy away from that responsibility. A 2-year budget will provide a degree of certainty for our employees and the residents of Inverclyde. It will protect jobs when Inverclyde has lost jobs, over 1,000 jobs in the private sector, and this budget keeps job losses to a minimum. And it protects services, Provost. It supports the most vulnerable by providing 5.5 million worth of social care, a year-on-year increase at a time when the Scottish Government has cut dental funding, and it will support our young people who are making their summer placements permanent, and it will support our apprentices by paying them the real living wage. Implementing a 2-year budget is the right thing to do, Provost. That's my support. Thank you, Provost.
Thank you, Councillor Day. Does any other member wish to make a contribution? Councillor Brown.
Thanks very much, Provost. Thinking about speaking today, I was just taking myself back to how this particular chapter that we're mostly discussing today actually began. And like Councillor McVeigh said there, it really was the announcement of that council tax fees with no consideration, no consultation, and really just announced on a whim. that wasn't to be progressive or to work towards a more equitable society, but it was to liven up a conference that was failing from the SNP. And I feel really sorry for the people who had to stand by this announcement, because the result that we are seeing are increasingly desperate scenes, people scrabbling to make something that was an irresponsible mistake look like a credible policy position. Even yesterday, an 11th or a 13th hour missive came through from Shona Robeson, but instead of being sent to the council, as it normally would be, or the council leader, or the chief executive, it went to Stuart McMillan MSP, and you see people literally talking to themselves. I think when I hear one of the elected members here speak up in favour of the council tax freeze, as I did a few weeks back, I actually started to think it was probably one of the most conservative statements that I've ever heard from an elected member who wasn't a conservative. And when you think of that contrast with that whim announcement from the SNP, then I have to say, thank goodness the picture of fiscal responsibility is very different here in Inverclyde. We do have strong leadership in many, many different areas, and we've heard from elected members, so many of them already today, people like Councillor McCabe, who we know is right across every detail and strategy. We've often got members who speak from the heart, with heart, and we've got loads of members who've got years of experience in public service, so their contributions, whether or not they made them today, are really steeped in a depth of experience. And of course, these members are backed up by council officers like Alan Buckran and his finance managers, who work and plan tirelessly to balance the books and operationally work out how the money goes in and out, so that we can think actually about how the money gets spent. So I suppose I often find myself in these debates asking, do I contribute? Do I stand up to say anything different? And what my contribution should be, because of course this meeting is actually the culmination of months and months of work and discussions to prepare to reach this point. And we've all had many opportunities, I think, to contribute. A process again so different from Humza Yousaf stepping out onto a conference podium and making the council tax freeze announcement. We've referenced the members' budget working group already, and I believe that's the formalisation of attempts at compromise and working together. And we've heard from different members about how that all played out. So in terms of my contribution, I am here as a councillor, but I have to always say that that is coloured and influenced by decades of experience as a member of the local government staff. I've been, and to a certain extent continue to be, one of those workers with the constant question mark over a post for a service, trying to keep going in an increasingly hostile environment for public services. It's rubbish. It's rubbish doing that, as lots of people here know from the people they have in their families or they work with, that it's just not nice to always have that question mark hanging over your job, but more importantly because of what your job ends up doing. We know that from social workers, from teachers now we're starting to see, from people working in environment and regeneration, loads and loads of different people that are too many to mention. But anyway, my commitment to frontline public sector work actually meant that a few years ago I shifted profession and retrained so that that question mark wouldn't be quite as constant. And now we're seeing in areas separate from Inverclyde, not here, that there are now question marks over teacher numbers and teacher posts as well. So that move has not worked out so well either. And my family that I'm trying to do this job to support would say at this point, stop making it all about you. But I think the reason I'm making it about me is because that story of public sector employment is like a thread that we've just seen now for over a decade in the public sector. And my commitment to public services is because our budget today is about trying to take some of these question marks away for the jobs, for the people who do those jobs, for the individuals behind the line on these papers that we see. It's for the services and communities as well behind that. It's about changing that question mark really to a full stop for 2 years that says we are on your side in Inverclyde, but we're also by your side in setting that 2-year budget that saves jobs. And because it's saving jobs, a range of services will be protected here and developed that unfortunately will still have a lot of threats and question marks over them in other parts of the country. It's one of the most basic truths of our democracy that taxes are the price we all pay with variations to live in a civilised society. It's like a membership fee that we pay to join the club of society. And if you want to live in that, then there's a certain amount of acceptance that you pay that fee. And like all societies, sometimes that fee has to go up. And this is one of those occasions, because I don't think we really want to see what it looks like if we don't do that. It's the principled, responsible step for us to take. And it's really very difficult to understand anyone disagreeing to take that, because deep down I think we would all have questions about the motives behind that sort of decision making. Obviously, I support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Brendan. I'm going to go to Councillor Brooks and then Councillor McCluskey.
Thanks very much, Provost. My preparation was in advance of obviously the two budgets that were tabled. So I will on my feet, as Councillor Jackson confirms that I'm able to do, I will do as many gymnastics as I can. So Provost, we had two budgets before us, we have two obviously motions before us, we've got the motion today. And we've arrived at this junction on a long journey that's been had, and we've all been on that journey. But it is a junction, no, that a decision has to be taken. So I'd just like to associate myself with thanks for the members of the working group and all the officers' time that has been given to that, and I'll leave that there. But to arrive at this junction, there obviously has been a journey. There's been a journey throughout the country as we have seen things develop. Our members of the working group has been obviously our journey. But the fact is that the Conservative government has focused on Scotland's priorities and to ensure that 25% higher income and the money that comes to Scotland has been delivered this year for Scottish public services. And that's been part of that journey. I will obviously talk about exactly where we are, but the journey we've got here, we've saw a 25% increase. In addition to that 25% increase, we're well aware here in Inverclyde that the government has directly invested in Scotland through the Levelling Up agenda and the multi-billion pound defence industry, which many people in Scotland work in and people in Inverclyde benefit from the ongoing event. So what we have is we have a government who's providing for Scotland record-breaking grants. We have an autumn statement that has offered tax cuts of 2.4 million Scottish workers. We've got a government that's delivered a new fiscal framework that will confirm that for every £100 that is spent down south, there will be £126 here for us in Scotland. And that is the journey we've been on. That is the money that's in the bank. That is the money that we're entitled to a fair share of as a local council. Provost, so where we are at this junction, I have to turn one way or the other. So to support the Labour group and Councillor McVeigh and your proposal, we need to take 2,870,000 out of constituent pockets, because that would be the equivalent of what we would pay, or they would pay, into Councillor McCabe. That's 956,666 cups of coffee, as you usually refer to. And I don't know how much. I don't know how much a bottle is in Celtic Park. I've never done that. Or Provost, the equivalent would be 478,233 sirloin steaks from a local butcher. That's the amount of money that would actually take out of people's pockets, would take out of the economy. This is money that constituents wouldn't have to spend in our local economy. So for the level of proposals that's been, I'm happy there's proposals of savings in the Labour and McVeigh and yourselves budget, but it is a lot lower than I had expected, anticipated. The savings that I thought that all groups had agreed to actually aren't in there, and I'll leave that obviously due to the members' budget working group and the chairman's rule that's within there. So if I turn the junction to the other side, obviously I had this obviously budget in mind when I was also writing this, but the reality is that what we have is the fact that we have the opportunity to take the grant that won't fully fund. And that's the challenge I have. It will mean something different would have to happen. The money that would come in, as has been said by our Chief Financial Officer, wouldn't be the equivalent of what we would lose. So that gives me the dilemma of what would happen. And nowhere in this budget proposal that has been withdrawn, I agree, where are the savings? Because there was £17 million budget gap in 2025 to 28. That was what was there, and that will surely still be there. That budget gap will still be there. So where are the savings? Where is the redirection? I suppose I'm going to have to say it from there as well. Where are the service redesigns to actually cut our cloth? Where are cuts to non-statutory services? And nobody else has said the word cuts in here. I'll leave it to the Conservatives to say it, and I'm sure I'll take that to your next. I'm waiting for it from you. And how many jobs would be lost if we were to take those 17 million savings and to fill that 17 million budget gap? So if the record of level that's not come from the Scottish Government, we've got level funding going into Holyrood, what we need to do is cut our cloth to fit. And I don't see that in the budgets before us. The proposal to delay the decision is obviously now the new second motion that's before us. What's that going to delay? It's really going to delay the money that's coming in, be it from tax payers through the council tax, or be it from the grant, which is shorter than what we originally had. So for me, Provost, on this journey, I'm confronted by this junction, and it's a junction neither I would prefer to take, but I'll wait till the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. Councillor McCluskey and then Councillor Locks.
Thank you, Provost. I'm also going to have to do some mental gymnastics with the new amendment. I wanted to begin by talking about what the Labour budget today will achieve. And as other colleagues have outlined, it's a 2-year budget, which is different to what we had on the table from the SNP.
It's still on the table, just so.
In response to what my constituents, many others across Inverclyde, often complain about, which is that our politics is far too short term, and it lurches from year to year with short term budgets that don't allow proper planning. And it's at this point I'll just address the amendment. To have us in this position here today, and to be put into this position by the government and the way that the government has operated, is awful. It's awful. And we're being asked to wait on a Tory budget next Wednesday, and then to maybe know what's going to happen 24 hours later, to then come back here next Friday to make a decision. That's not going to happen. But there is absolutely no way that we are going to know by Thursday what has happened in that Wednesday budget. Having dealt with UK budgets for many, many years as an advisor on the Scottish office in Westminster, there was never one day where we knew exactly what the consequences were within 24 hours. In many cases, we had to wait for a week. So I won't be supporting, I don't think I'll say surprised, I won't be supporting the amendment, but the reason I'm not going to be supporting the amendment is because it's offering something that we're not going to be able to achieve. And we can look at this after the decision's been made if the Labour budget passes here, and we can see that next Thursday. But I would put a significant amount of money on it that by 5 o'clock next Thursday we will have no idea what the consequences are coming from the UK government, and the Scotland office won't know, the Scottish government won't know, and we would be left with a decision in the exact same circumstances. So the budget we are putting forward today is a budget that is prudent, provides certainty, with choices that take us right up to 2026, and provides us with a firm base for the future. It guarantees for the long term many of the services that my constituents have lobbied me about over recent months. I can now turn round to them, unlike colleagues who are or were supporting this SNP proposal, and tell them that these services are secure and funded until 2026. In my own ward, that's included a number of council services, but more widely across Inverclyde, it rejects for the life of this budget many of the cuts that people told us that they didn't want to see. The reduction in street cleaning, the maintenance of green spaces, the end of the CCTV service, which we've heard from the police about how that would impede their ability to fight crime, the end of the community warden service, which so many residents in our community rely on, removing the play scheme subsidy. Bear in mind that the play scheme subsidy, before the play scheme was fully subsidised, people were paying £5 a day to go to a play scheme. This budget is saying that we're going to fund that for the next 2 years. Our Labour budget, that's worth £20 a week per child to low-income families. And we're making this choice to put forward a budget today that makes difficult choices, but it protects jobs and services that our residents rely on. And when other members of the chamber talk about consciences being clear on walking out of here today after we made the choices, my conscience will be completely clear because I came here on the basis of protecting jobs and services and doing what I think is right for the community. Now, I'm not going to suggest that the conscience of the other benches are not going to be clear. We all are here to make our own judgment about what's best for the community and what's best for our residents. But my conscience will be completely clear because I've thought long and hard about the judgment we are making today. But this budget doesn't happen in isolation. This is a budget taking place in the background of very difficult national circumstances. And we've heard a lot from the SNP group this afternoon about support that's purported to be coming from the government, which we're having to trust that the UK Tory government. It's the first time I've ever really heard an SNP minister stand up and say we should trust what the Tories are going to do. It's a very novel experience to hear that from the other benches, but that's what we're being asked to do here, is to trust that these consequences are going to come from a Tory government. So my question is, why should we believe this when so many of the other promises that we've heard over the years have been broken? And Councillor McCabe went through a number of them already. But let's start with the original sin, the original broken promise, which was to abolish the council tax. We'd actually done that 17 years ago. If the SNP had gone through with their promise, a very prominent election pledge in 2007, we'd be having this debate today. We'd be having a debate ideally over a much better set of taxes, local taxation to raise funds for us. We wouldn't be having this debate. We wouldn't be lumbered with an out-of-date tax system that's based on property prices from 1992. We're still waiting for, in the words of the SNP pledge, for us to scrap the unfair council tax. Second, in terms of the national picture, local government across Scotland is in crisis. The SNP benches are pretending that the money that may or may not come from the government is somehow a panacea. It's not. We know it's not. We're using a significant amount of our reserves this year, which are pulling us into an even greater hole as time goes on. We can see that in the papers in front of us that Mr Cochrane has produced. We've been warned about what the sustainability of services look like if we don't consider what the reserves look like, which again is why we're supporting this today as a prudent, responsible budget. Between 2013 and 2023, the Scottish Government budget has increased by 37%. Scottish Government budget has gone up by 37%. If any members could hazard a guess at how much the local government budget has gone up by, 4.8%. 4.8%. It's all very convenient to look at the choices here in isolation, but this is on the background of 17 years where there has been a conscious choice by the Scottish Government to defund, deprioritise and run down local government and run down local government finances. And to say to all of us in this room, to say to the workforce who work for council services, you are not valued. Because that is the message that sends out. And it has been, the cherry on the cake on that has been the ripping up of the Verity House Agreement, which hasn't even lasted 12 months. So to ask us then to choose to wait for promises from the Scottish Government, not just this year, but promises that they might make for next year, it would be deeply irresponsible to go down that route. And we should also remember, as we heard noted earlier on, that these budgets have been voted on, these Scottish Government budgets have been voted on by our SNP MP consistently. And as Councillor McCabe pointed out, £75 million worth of recurring savings. We've heard figures bandied around about money being taken out of the local economy and the local budget. Think about 75 million that is already gone because of cuts that we've had to make year after year after year. Finally, the Scottish Government budget, from which our settlement emerges, is the worst budget since the start of devolution. And it's important because, as I've said before, we don't set this budget today in isolation. We do it on the background of massive cuts being made by the Scottish Government. And I don't want members to take my word for it. Let's look at what Scotland's leading anti-poverty charities have said about this Scottish Government budget, the budget that I assume members obviously support and that our SNP, MP and MSP have been supporting quite publicly. Shelter Scotland, Scotland's leading housing charity, said the Scottish Government can't claim to be determined to fight poverty while presiding over records homelessness. That records homelessness, for members who might not be aware, is 9,500 children living in temporary accommodation. 9,500 children, and the government have slashed the housing budget. Chris Burt of the Joseph Rowntree Foundation called the budget cuts brutal. Not my words, the words of the Joseph Rowntree Foundation. The Child Poverty Action Group, UK's leader on child poverty, called the budget bitterly disappointing. And when it comes to other parts of the budget, such as health, that I know a lot of us are interested in, the Institute for Fiscal Studies has confirmed that the budgets are being cut at a time when the NHS is under massive pressure. And we're going to be seeing the consequences of that when, in a month's time, some of us around this table have to set a budget for the IJB at a time when we're told that health budgets are increasing, but we're also seeing cuts there because of cuts to the health budget, not because the decision was made in this budget to pass over £5.5 million for social care services. Finally, I want to turn in a bit more detail to the proposals that are on the table for the SNP today. We've heard an awful lot from members opposite throughout this debate, and I'm sure we'll hear more in a moment. And maybe when they stand up to speak, they might want to answer the question about the £3.2 million black hole that's in the budget for next year. We've already heard from Mr. Puckrin at the start of this meeting that the cumulative gap in funding, Appendix 4 of the SNP paper, the gap of 17 million represents a 48% increase in council tax. If no savings are taken, a 48% increase in council tax. All because of reckless and short-term budget decisions being proposed by the SNP, but it doesn't do anything to protect jobs and services beyond March of next year. That's what this budget is proposing. It's taking the public for fools and expecting them not to see what is just round the corner if this budget is adopted either next week or next week. So the SNP should come clean about how they're going to pay for this. How is the £3.2 million black hole in the budget next year going to be paid for? Will it be 100 council jobs? Because that's what £3.2 million represents. Or will it be cuts to the services that we're rejecting in the Labour budget today? Which of them would you propose cutting next year? And we fully funded our budget for next year. Your budget is a £3.2 million gap. So which of the services would go? Is it jobs? Is it services? Or is it an up to 48% increase in council tax before the end of this term? Which is it? Because we haven't heard, in all the work so far we haven't heard, so I'll be listening to that from members opposite when they stand up. And if people want to understand where the SNP's proposal to deeply irresponsible financial management takes us, just look at what's happening in SNP-run Glasgow, or actually, for that matter, many SNP-run councils across Scotland. Just this week alone, 450 teaching jobs cut. 450 teaching jobs, a 25% increase in parking charges. Reintroduction of parking charges after 6 o'clock, which is going to ruin the nighttime economy in Glasgow. Just as a reminder about what we passed earlier in the month, we are keeping our parking charges static this year in Inverclyde. Cuts to pioneering mentorship programmes and mentorship schemes for young people at risk. And a massive hole in their IJB budget, an absolutely massive hole in their IJB budget, to the extent that the chief social worker is saying that this could put children's services and lives at risk. So that's what we get with SNP financial management just up the road in Glasgow, and it's what reckless and short-term SNP plans would mean here. And I refuse to treat people across Inverclyde like fools and tell them that there's an easy way out. People are, as Councillor Quinn said earlier, people are sick to their back teeth of politicians who put cheap political stunts ahead of their communities. And that is exactly what this SNP proposal does today. It's what the First Minister did last year when he announced the council tax freeze. And I refuse, along with my colleagues, to be part of a dishonest, short-term politics that refuses to level with the public about the challenges ahead. So let's be absolutely clear about the choice that is on offer with these two budgets. A short-term, reckless and opaque budget with the SNP, and a secret plan for £3.2 million worth of cuts, which maybe they'll shed more light on in a moment, or long-term, responsible and levelling with the public with the Labour budget. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Tusky. Councillor Lonnie, Councillor Robertson.
Thank you.
I'm sure I'm not the only person who's agonised over this budget process. Part of that's come from the soul searching as a result of some of the things that I've heard said in this chamber, particularly Jim's comments a couple of weeks ago about choices we have for this budget. It stuck with me and I knew he was right. That's exactly what we have today, and it is a choice I've agonised about. But the choice is whether we ask the people of Inverclyde to pay for what now seems like an unnecessary rise, or we accept the funding from the Scottish Government. And now will this amendment ensure that this will come with a pause? So either way, we're protecting the funding, and it would be pretty similar outlook. Another challenge has been that we get repeatedly asked to put pressure on the Scottish Government by the members opposite, and rightly, but that implies that we're not doing that. And I can assure you that's exactly what we've been doing, up to and including my private meeting with the First Minister and our MSP. During that meeting, I challenged the First Minister about extra funding coming to Inverclyde, and I stressed the importance, the crucial nature of it. 2 days later, the announcement was made. In contrast, the Labour group organised a protest asking for more money for local government outside their MSP's office. Now that's being offered, they're proposing not to take it. If we talk about choices, for me, that's the wrong one. Lynn has put forward a compromise. I'm happy to support this because it allows us time to guarantee the funding we all want to come. And if it doesn't, I'll happily accept the rise because it's what's best for the people here, and that will always be my priority. Thank you.
Councillor Robertson, and then Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Provost. Sorry, I'm moving. I'll just express some thanks as well, if that's okay, just first of all to our staff here in the council and to our union colleagues who've been all the way through this process with us. I also would like to thank Chris. You'll notice that it was Chris who stood in and proposed our amendment this afternoon, not me, and that's because Chris has really put the majority of the work into developing the budget, and I would never have done that the opportunity to stand in and back his own budget. So thank you, Chris, and to the rest of my team for everything that's been done this year to get to where we are. Things have slightly changed, and actually the theme of change will be within the notes I'm reading from this afternoon. But we do have a kind of base choice of £2.8 million either coming from directly from the pockets of people Inverclyde or baselines from the Scottish Government. And I just want to emphasise something that Councillor Curley did say earlier on, which is if we have an 8.2% council tax increase and we approve that today, then Inverclyde moves from being an authority with an average council tax band D level to being the second highest in the whole of Scotland. And that just doesn't seem like where we should be. We did support, going back to some comments that have come from across the chamber, we did support a council tax rise last year, that's correct. We did support the council tax strategy of 7% earlier this year. We were also mindful as a group, and I've said it, went back lots of meetings where we've said it in this chamber, that things would change. We indicated that we would, and they absolutely have. They've changed not only over the course of this budget setting process, which they always do, but they've changed over the course of this, what's that, 3 hour meeting? 2 hour meeting? 2 hour, no, not 3 hour. Oh Lord. So we knew that was going to happen, that changes would take place. We would like to accept funding that is being made available from the Scottish Government to avoid that money having to be taken from the pockets of the people of Inverclyde. To go back to a point that Councillor McCluskey made, there is no panacea. There isn't a panacea, and we have been and will continue in this coming year and then in other years we have to push for better processes and better relationships. In fact, I'm going to do a kind of uncharacteristically vain thing and say that I think I've probably been the most consistent positive voice for the requirement for changing the relationship between local government and Scottish Government in this chamber. This is not something that we think is hunky-dory, everything in the garden is rosy. It needs to change, it absolutely does need to change, and we'll continue to do that. It's not something that we're shying away from at all. We are, however, perhaps to make the decision that we're making today because, given all the change that has happened, the figures now add up. It makes financial sense to make this decision here and now to accept the council tax freeze. We've listened, we've talked about, you guys have mentioned several times now that you've listened to people in Inverclyde. We've also listened. You'll notice that in our budget there are very minimal cuts. You'll notice that in our budget we're also protecting services and jobs, so there's not actually a lot in between what we were initially proposing and what's been proposed by Labour government, over-aggrandising there, sorry, Labour Council, in terms of what we were trying to do with minimising cuts and protecting jobs and services and all the rest of it. But the crucial difference in what we were proposing is that we were able to accept the council tax freeze. It is a great point at diversification, and I think it is the point that does divide us here this afternoon, and it's probably part of why I would imagine Lynn has come forward, Councillor Quinn has come forward with a compromise, because there is a way to look beyond the binary choice of the two budgets and actually say, as I mentioned earlier in my comments, that Schrodinger's money will cease to be Schrodinger's money at some point, and we can actually look at what the requirements will be of dealing with that. If the money comes forward, which we believe it will, then fair enough, we're able to take a cut, accept the council tax cut freeze, and if it's not there, then you guys are all, that's the base of the matter, and we'll be able to see what happens with that in the next week or so. I do want to kind of come back to something that Councillor McCabe said, and I'm sorry to kind of return to this, but I'm not doing what I'm doing this afternoon because a matter has told me to do that. I don't have a master, and I do, it is a phrase that was used, and I do consider it to be quite demeaning language. I don't have a master, and I'm not doing this because my master has told me to do it. I have my own views on the journey that we've come with council tax, with the decision that was made by the First Minister, and all of that, everything that's happened since. I have my own views on it. We have had lots and lots of debate within our group about it, and we don't shy away from that. But the decisions that I'm making today, I have never been more solid on that. I feel that I'm doing the right thing. I've expressed to colleagues this morning, promised that sometimes I come into the chamber, know what I want to do, we've made the decision as a group, but very much also seeing the position of the opposing group. My empathy really kicks in, and I kind of go, right, I really get where they're coming from, however this is my decision. In this instance, I'm so solid about why we're doing what we're doing, and that's a very, very, I don't have a master, I have no one telling me what to do in this position, and I really need that to be very much understood by my colleagues who I hope value and respect me across this chamber. We have talked a lot about change, and I've talked a lot about change, Provost, in terms of the process that we're going through up to now. And there's going to be so much change in the next year. And to kind of come to Councillor McCluskey's request that we talk about a second year in terms of filling a budget gap, I don't know that you, as a group, will be able to fully realise or fully require all the things that are in your second year of your budget, because things are likely to change yet again. And what we've done is we've taken the opportunity to do what we know we can do, and we know that things will change, and we're choosing agility over intransigence is really the choice that we're making as a group. And you'll notice that our budget was put before you. It's therefore an entirely competent budget, and it starts and stops at that point. It's an entirely competent budget to be brought before you. We know that lots of things will change, lots of things have changed, and that's where we are. So we know that we've obviously withdrawn our budget from the table in favour of one Councillor Quinn's amendment. We think that this is a decision that is worth taking. We will know in a week's time what the situation is with that money, and then we can revisit the position at that point. Thank you for letting me kind of say all the beautiful things that I wanted to say that have now some of them been superseded by another amendment. But thank you, Provost, and thank you everybody for making the contribution.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Councillor Jackson, then Councillor Beasley, please.
Yeah, thanks, Provost. not got a lot to say, Provost. Just to address some of the comments by members opposite. To Councillor Quinn, who doesn't take politics, that was a hell of a political stunt she just pulled. You know, the speed of the hands that shot up across the table would suggest this was, you know, pre-arranged by Hurst. You know, not he's never even discussed it. He's put his hands up. That's a hell of a stunt he's pulled. Councillor Reynolds, Councillor Reynolds and Graham, Councillor Graves both talked about 3 million getting taken out of the local economy. Now, the council tax freeze is a tax break for the middle classes. We all know that. The middle classes get a tax break. They don't spend that. When money is directed at the poor and those that need it, then they will get in and buy extra food, put their heating on, and they will spend their money. A tax break such as this, the middle class don't spend. It's a £3 billion is not getting taken out of the local economy. So it's not. I'm just going to follow on for something Councillor McCluskey said. I mean, this tax freeze is supposed to benefit, you know, the cost of living crisis, tackle inflation, tackle poverty. And the Scottish Government tells us the cost of living crisis and rising inflation at the heart of the decision to increase the council tax. A measure these say will help tackle rising poverty. A laudable sentiment as policy will go, it's deeply flawed. Now, ahead of Tuesday's budget announcement, anti-poverty campaigners from the third sector, charity organisations and trade unions are all warned that if the aim of the government was to tackle the cost of living crisis and rising poverty within our communities, then freezing the council tax was the wrong policy. That the evidence was clear, it would benefit the well-off and do nothing to help struggling families. Now, that comes from nearly every charity and third sector organisation. The End Child Poverty Coalition, which represents over 80 organisations in Scotland, warned, and this is their words, that funding a council tax freeze would proportionally benefit better off households while providing little, if no, support for low-income families. That this budget and the freezing of the council tax does not align with the Scottish Government's stated policy priority of tackling poverty. That this budget, including freezing of the council tax, is a step backwards in tackling poverty. Again, on the budget and the council tax freeze specifically, Child Poverty Action Group have said the Scottish Government have made the choice to disproportionately benefit better off households while providing little, if any, support for low-income families, choosing not to prioritise children living in Scotland today. Now, the next thing I'm going to read here comes from the Scottish Government's own analysis of income taxes and social security for 24-25. This is the Scottish Government's own report. The freeze in council tax generates a small benefit in cash terms. The benefit is greater for high-income households who tend on average to live in larger houses and therefore pay a higher rate of council tax. Provost, pretty much every one of these organisations are in agreement that money given to fund the council tax would have been better given to councils who could then use it to fund their own anti-initiative poverties. Now, I've had the benefit of being able to talk to trade union members from Glasgow to Ayrshire and Inverclyde, and their members, including some of the lowest paid, have all said that they were prepared to pay a higher council tax if it saved jobs and services. Now, I've no doubt that SNP colleagues share the ambitions to eradicate poverty, but I think you really need to concede that support the Scottish Government here is simply wrong. A lot of people, like Sir Lynn says, we want to keep the politics out. Yes, every one of these organisations have no political links, they've no ties, and every one of them said the money would be better spent, given to councils to spend on their own anti-poverty initiatives that are going to benefit the middle classes more. Provost, I think it speaks for itself.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Daisley and then Councillor Poverty.
Thanks, Provost. I had quite a few points to make, but I'm just going to keep it to one. Every single person in this chamber is accountable to the public. We answer to them. And we've got councillors in this room who make a lot of noise publicly about supporting their constituents, that yet they have their name directly or as part of a group, on this punitive, regressive Labour budget that will financially hurt the very people that they publicly support. Well, the public is watching this and they're not going to forget the decisions that are made today here. Thanks, Provost.
Councillor Burke.
Yeah, thanks, Provost. Provost, can I firstly take the opportunity to apologise to yourself if I overstepped the mark when I done my standing order with it. Obviously, from my point of view, I sort of waited that Mr. Strachan and yourself actually adjudicated on it before doing what I thought was right, knowing full well that you can only move and sing something you shouldn't say something at that point, so I apologise for that. From my point of view, I look at this and I'm dealing purely, because I wasn't going to speak on this, I'm dealing purely with the new amendment. Right? So we're dealing purely with the new amendment now. And the new amendment is actually saying, wait and see. That's what the new amendment is saying, wait and see. We have trust in the Tory government down in Westminster. We have trust in the Scottish government in Holland. So that's all. And we're not saying that. And we're not actually saying we're waiting to the ban on consequentials gets passed on to Holland and we're trusting. So we're trusting the Westminster government to actually do that in the budget, and then we're trusting them to pass on to Bollywood and for them to pass on to us.
We're not trusting, that's why we're waiting.
Yeah, but okay. So we get to the stage when we'll go out next Thursday and we don't have any work, as I think Mark had said, we'll all come back here. So the members opposite are then going to vote for an 8.2% council tax. That's what you're saying to us. And we have to believe you are going to do that. So if you remember, when this first got announced, Shona Robson first announced the money for the council tax freeze. She said it was fully funded. And everybody said it's not fully funded. Everybody knew it wasn't fully funded, but the Scottish Government and Shona Robson assured everybody it was fully funded. Caused like in their sons, and it was a massive black hole in what Shona Robson says. And then, kicking and screaming, she waited to the last minute before pulling another rabbit out the hat and saying, well, okay, what we'll then do is we'll give you the UK consequentials that we're sure is going to turn out in the government in April. And that's what she said, right at the last minute. So I would say to members opposite, when you're actually supporting this, are you really telling us that you were going to come in here today, if Shona Robson never promised that UK consequentials, that you were going to come in here today and support an 8.2% council tax?
Yes.
And the only council, only SNP council in Scotland opposition that would have done that. And that's the question you've got to ask yourselves. Because I personally don't believe that. I believe you're going to party line, and I believe this is going to be get out of jail clause for you that Lynn's put in for you, trying to put in. And I think now what we're saying is we've got a balanced budget for 2 years, which, Kirsty, you're absolutely right, protects jobs and protects services. Every job in Inverclyde is important just now. Just last week, Stephen talked about losing 1,200 jobs in the last year for Inverclyde. Now, the local authority is probably by far the biggest employer in Inverclyde. We're going to actually step out our seal and actually say, look, we're going to support our workforce and we're going to support the idea that every job is pressed in Inverclyde. So I think the thought of waiting for a UK government to pass on it to the Scottish government, and then the Scottish government to then say, yeah, okay, we'll give it all to councils, it's just farming. It really is farming. It is just a leap in the dark that we don't need to do. Sometimes you've just got to stand up to a school, you have to like, and that's what we're doing. Thank you,
Thank you, Councillor Plugby. Councillor Crowther and then Councillor Moran.
Thank you, Provost. First of all, what I'd like to point out is that there seems to be quite a lot of distrust from the benches opposite there, and we do believe that the promises that we have received will indeed be carried out, and that the extra money will be passed on to local authorities. But what I'd like to point out as well is that we are aware that here in Inverclyde, when we look at the data that's been contained within the Scottish Index of Multiple Deprivation, Inverclyde has the highest share of all councils for the percentage data zones in the 5%, the 10% and 20% of the most deprived data zone areas in Scotland. It also has the second highest local share of all councils in Scotland, with the data zone for the 15% deprived data zones. During this period, where many of the residents are struggling to make ends meet due to the high cost of basic services, should we not, in all honesty, refuse to be adding to that? And the 8.2% clearly is adding to the potential debt that would be put on our residents. Now, I have looked very, very closely at it, tried to play the devil's advocate. If I was in that position, would I be looking for an extra 8.2%? No, I wouldn't. I would prefer it to be frozen. Now, if we'd also move on as well, reference was made to Glasgow City Council. Could I remember members that it was the equal pay claims that had to be settled? That was a disaster that was overseen by the Labour Party, and it was left to the SNP to resolve. Thank you.
Councillor Barrantes.
Thank you, Robert. Before I start, I want to make utmost respect for my colleagues across the table and for Councillor Quinn. I want to make that quite clear for a member statement. Promise, I've been in a position where my job was under threat when I worked in rural working days. And there's not a worse feeling in the world, knowing if you're going to get a tap on the shoulder saying you're finished, you've got another line for 6 weeks for this. So thinking back to my working days, we met with trade union colleagues, and I looked them straight in the face, and I said to them, I don't want to be in that position, any of you members to be in that position. If we can help, we'll do that. But I've heard a lot over the years, especially Chris, about fiscal levers. If we had the fiscal levers to tell us they could do everything, well, we have the fiscal levers here to do something. We have the fiscal levers here to say to people workers, for the next 2 years, you're okay, you've got a job. We're looking at EE down the road, Amazon, 1,000 jobs we've lost. So we're saying it's okay for them to keep you off. So the council can do the same. No, it's not okay for them to do. The council wants to protect every single person who works for us. And this is what this budget does. Chris made this, he gave that £1 coin and said, yeah, £1, can I get 100? Well, I can't. I'll tell you what, Chris, I'm band deaf, and I'll be paying £3.66 a week. You know what that gets me? That gets me, well, the people work for us 2 years of safe employment. It gets me free school meals for the kids in my primaries. It gets me free swimming. Free swimming might not be a lot of us, but if you're living up one of the schemes that I represent in Port Glasgow, and one of the, you've got 2 or 3 children that want to go to the baths, now you're going to find £15, and the bus fares so they can go to the baths. So you're financially embarrassed. Well, with our scheme, no children needs to be embarrassed. They can go down and get their swim free of charge. That's £3.66 for me. The play schemes, everybody loves it. What do? Not everybody has got money to go abroad or go somewhere else. All of your people we represent are left here in our environment. So we have to do something to make it more job for them to term time. Play schemes is a great example of that. Free swimming is a great example of that. We also, for older people, and I class myself as one of them, we've still got our CCTV, we've still got our wardens over £3.66. They like to go to a library, they sit and have a book, or go on the computers, or do. They get that for £3.66. You get your grass cutted, which always wanted about the environment. You get that for £3.66. And what else? Promise. The thing you do get for free. If, unfortunately, you lose one of your family members, you can get them buried in time for £3.66. I think £3.66 is well, price well paid for this budget. I support it.
Councillor Moran. Councillor Nelson, please.
Yeah, I think that's your question, Alan. There's different sums that have been discussed here earlier, and you've highlighted that 3.7, 3.8, 3.9 of the report. And you said
Councillor Nelson, we had an opportunity earlier on to ask questions, and now we're into a debate. So I think it's unfair to go back to Mr. Buckley at this stage.
Okay.
Councillor Cassidy, please.
Thank you, Provost. And I want to join obviously by my colleague earlier on, Ms McGuire. Thank you for the flexibility when it comes to speeches in particular. For one, as a council with disability, it's greatly appreciated that this council requires a step toward being a disability positive. Obviously, my speech was predicated on the two original budgets were proposed, but I'm just going to read through it because it's still relevant. I want to record my thanks to the Members Budget Working Group, Mr. Buckman, and all of our staff for the work that they did last year through our budget process. There's no doubt that local government has had a return budget settlement from the Scottish Government. This year, the Scottish Government process has been nothing short of symbolic. They've a clear disdain for local government. Sorry, I know you don't like the term bullying, but I was taught by my mother that you call a bully, and I'm going to use it. The bullying, the threats to the Scottish Government show just how little respect the Scottish Government has for us. The very test agreement clearly wasn't worth the paper it was written on, and yesterday the Scottish Government's budget has only just confirmed that. Councillor Robson spoke earlier on about wanting a better relationship between local government and Scottish Government. That was the very council agreement. It is Scottish Government, your party, who has thrown that away. It's not local government. We came to the table with them. It's your party. The attempt of the Scottish Government to force councils to freeze council tax has been condemned by trade unions, by councillors, some public, some behind the scenes, including SNP members across the country, and leading experts. And here's what the Poverty Alliance has said in their budget briefing on the Scottish Government budget. If enacted, the council tax freeze would represent a failure of responsible government, a step back on the road toward reforming a regressive tax that places an unjust burden on the shoulders of low-income households. We urge the First Minister to reconsider this decision. We disagree with the claim that the council tax freeze is a cost of living measure for low-income households, and contrast the decision to have a negative consequence for those living on low incomes, while also having a long-term implication of further embedding inequality in Scotland. Freezing the council tax will inevitably mean less money for critical public services that form a vital lifeline for people living on low incomes. On passing the Scottish Government budget yesterday, the SGC said that the Scottish Parliament is passing on cuts that will deeply damage the social fabric of our communities and have let the Scottish Government off the hook, and they have. This budget significantly cuts funding for local government, further in higher education as well, cutting capital investment and the need to tackle both the climate and housing crisis. The SGC also says specifically the council tax freeze that the Scottish Government's council tax freeze has made a bad problem worse. Restricting revenue for critical public services will disproportionately benefit the rich. And the Poverty Alliance even said after the passing yesterday that the freeze was badly thought out, doing little to help people in poverty, so providing a bigger cash boost to welfare households. The Scottish Government has framed this budget, which will protect public services, but that freeze undermines that ambition. This budget before us today is prudent, it's responsible. It's the only way to guarantee the extra money we raise will be available next year and in future years. It shows us councils listen to our citizens, trade unions and our staff. It protects jobs at a time when the number of clients losing jobs. It protects services that many of our citizens rely on, including those who are the most vulnerable and deprived. It will ensure our citizens, community, facilities and staff know the level of services they can expect over the next 2 years. And I hear it from my words, you and I, not just my own word, but a lot of you Inverclyde regularly, and I hear it from all of our community facilities, from the public. They want more certainty in a one-year budget. They want to be able to plan for the future, and our constant one-year budgets are not helping us do that. And Councillor Daisley we share a same ward, and you talk about you face our constituents that you're accountable to them. Of course, we're accountable to them. I've listened to my constituents, some of the most deprived in this community, you know that. And they are saying that this council tax fees is irresponsible. It is irresponsible. And councillor Reynolds, you can sit there and laugh and chuckle all you like, but your own constituents in Europe also believe that. They want to see the investment. Your government is not bringing that. It's about time that the SNP learns to prioritise Inverclyde first. You want to talk about party politics? You guys are not sitting there defending your government. Your government has cut this council to the bone. It's about time you realise that your job should be here to stand up for Inverclyde and put your party politics to the side. It's time to turn around and say to the public in Inverclyde that you'll prioritise them over protecting Stuart McMillan, who has never met a budget that has his workload for that falls up to this council. This budget is putting our citizens and staff in Inverclyde first. It's saying enough is enough. We are no longer going to look at the Scottish Government. We'll fight to protect the vital public services that we perform, and we'll invest in Inverclyde. It's the right thing to do. It prioritises many things that my constituents have told me they want to see. Our warden service, vital funding for community facilities, free school meals, to name just but a few they told me. This budget all prioritises that. This budget, and Trish, you can sit there and shake your head to be right, but this budget is a 2-year budget. It lays out to people what's happening. You guys came to the table with a 1-year budget, because you don't want to tell the public about the massive council tax rises you're going to make. You can shake your head, you're going to have to make them, and the massive cuts you're going to make. And you know what? Quite frankly, you want to talk about facing the public constituent. You should face them by turning around and telling them what you were going to cut, how big a council tax rise you were going to have to bring in. You already heard it earlier on. Yeah. Face the public and tell them that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cassidy. I think Councillor McFarlane.
I wasn't going to say very much, Provost, but my problem with what's happened here is the actual process. The clever folk than me around the table here can quote the facts and figures. The point is, 5 months ago, as a group, we sat in Broomhill Community Centre when we went through the budget sheets, and we argued, and we argued. We found out a week ago, after this lengthy process, there might be more money on the table. But in the interim period, we've furnished letters to folks saying that their jobs are at risk. Now, that cannot be the right way to do things. Oh. So I think we need to look at the way we operate. I think we need to have more respect shown towards local authorities for the Scottish Government. And I think I'm more than happy to support the budget that was in front of us.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Nelson.
Thank you. I have concerns that money, possible money coming to Inverclyde might not be coming to Inverclyde. And I just wonder in the future how Audit Scotland will look at this when they look back and they see that money that could have come here has not come here, and how they will judge this council. And I know the Orkney Council are doing exactly what Lynn is talking about. They're waiting until they see what additional monies might be coming to them before they make a decision. And I think that's a prudent thing to do. Alan uses the word prudent in his report, and I think that's a prudent thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Members, I think that everybody who is entitled to speak has spoken. Therefore, I will go to Councillor McCabe to sum up.
Yeah, I don't wish to say too much. I have to say that I think we've had a reasonable striking debate. Lots of good contributions. There is a fundamental difference between us. There's no doubt about that. The SNP councillors trust their own party, trust their own government. We certainly do not trust their party and government. The fundamental problem here is, as has been exposed on a number of occasions, the council tax freeze is a regressive, irrational national policy. And no matter how many times the Scottish Government are told that, we simply don't believe it or don't accept it, because the political imperative of any populist nationalist government is to offer populist measures to convince people to vote. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day. It's all about the election. It's all about saving SNP seats. It's about saving Ronnie Cowan's job. That's the fundamental only rationale for us. Because COSLA, has been said, offered a perfectly reasonable compromise, supported by all COSLA leaders. And that compromise was, give us the 147 million, allow us a cap of 5%. We've had caps before, it might not be very democratic, but we've had caps before. And if any council in Scotland genuinely believed that raising council tax, freezing council tax was the best for their community, there's nothing stopping them to do that. Nothing stopping them to do it. But if councils felt on balance the best thing for their community was to raise extra money through putting council tax up by up to 5%, getting their share of the grant to protect services, they could do that as well. And at the same time, recognising that there are people on the margins of qualifying for council tax reduction, we said to them, make the council tax reduction scheme more generous, right? You can reduce the savings limit, because at the moment you don't get it, you've got over £16,000 worth of savings. Increase the income limits that you did have disregards to bring more people into council tax reduction. That's the fairer way to do it, right? To support people you genuinely believe need a helping hand. Giving millionaires a council tax freeze, giving MSPs who are earning 80 grand a year a council tax freeze. That's no the way to tackle poverty. That is a populist, nationalist measure aimed at one thing and one thing only, buying votes.
Thank you, Councillor McCabe. Thank you, members, for all your contributions during the debate. We have a motion proposed by Councillor McCabe, and we have an amendment properly proposed by Councillor Quinn. Mr. Strachan, please.
Okay, thank you, Provost. So, as Provost said, Councillors, motion by Councillor McCabe, the amendment by Councillor Quinn. I've been asked you to indicate your motion, the amendment or abstention. Councillor Armstrong, motion or amendment?
Amendment.
Councillor Brennan.
Motion.
Councillor Brooks.
Abstain.
Councillor Cassidy.
Motion.
Councillor Hockerty.
Motion.
Councillor Crowther.
Amendment.
Councillor Curley.
Amendment.
Councillor Daisley.
Amendment.
Councillor Jackson.
Motion.
Councillor Law.
Amendment.
Councillor McCabe. Motion. Councillor McCluskey. Motion. Councillor McCormick.
Motion.
Councillor Maguire.
Motion.
Provost McKenzie.
Motion.
Councillor McVeigh.
Motion.
Councillor Moran.
Motion.
Councillor Nelson.
Amendment.
Councillor Quinn. Councillor Reynolds.
Amendment.
Councillor Robertson.
Amendment.
Councillor Wilson.
Abstain.
So the motion is carried by 11 votes to 9 with 2 abstentions.
Thank you, Mr. Strachan. Thank you, members, for all your contribution here. A sincere thanks to the officers for the work they have put in and to the administration staff to presenting this speech today. Safe journey home, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Provost.